Welcome to Private Banking Strategies Podcast with Vance, Lowe, and Seth Hicks, your secret weapon to protect your assets and never have to start over financially again. Vance and Seth help high net worth individuals, families, business owners, and investors structure an asset-protected, tax-free fortress for their families. Learn how to keep what you earn and use the velocity of money to create your own private banking system. Join us on this journey as we explore the secret strategies of the rich and political elite and help you take total control of your financial security. Now, on to the show.
Well, hello and welcome to Private Banking Strategies Podcast with Vance, Lowe, and Seth Hicks. Vance, how are you?
I'm doing great, Seth. It's a great day to be alive and a lot of things happening out there.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to get into this topic, a multi-part series. Tell us what we're going to talk about today.
We're going to talk about how this strategy, when we acquire our own debt or when we buy loans, how we evaluate them and how or what the worth is to us. So there's a spreadsheet that we've defined over the years, along with our outline of the 8-year analysis. We're going to use one of those. We're going to use an old client that I got permission to use his information, and we're going to evaluate some of those loans and introduce everybody to this software. For the new folks, you can begin to see why it's so important that if we believe we finance everything we buy and we have debt and we're making payments to someone else, we need to find out what type of profit they make and why they lend money. And then that's why we're doing what we do to be able to control or own or put our own money to work, our assets to work, by buying the things that we would normally finance. Automobiles, cars, education, you name it, are things that we as human beings like to do. We want to be able to finance those, but get the money back. So without going into a ton of detail before this, most of you can listen to our podcast, know what we're about. This is going to really get into, hey, I've done a little bit, I've found out a little bit about the private banking strategy, and today we're going to give you an in-depth look of some of the power behind this strategy.
Awesome. Yeah, so when we're talking about loans, we're talking about the repayment of our own private bank for expenditures that money has been used for and taken out of our bank for, whether it's an investment or a credit card, purchase of debt, or whether it's any type of purchase. Like you said, we finance everything we purchase. So we're talking about setting up the repayment of our own bank, our own private family bank, for those purchases.
So let's introduce this client, because a lot of our clients find themselves in kind of a situation maybe like this. May not be as dramatic, or it might be right on, or they even might be further in debt than most other people. So we segregate each and every debt that a person has. Here's an individual who was a chiropractor. He got misdiagnosed with Lyme's disease and couldn't practice for 2 full years. And he ran up a debt, he owed everybody, it seemed like. And when they came in, it was to find out whether they should file bankruptcy or if they needed to pull their twin sons out of Michigan State University because they didn't think they could keep it going. So we want to show maybe the example here and the power of self-financing, how fast an individual can get out of debt. So you can see up here 13 debts and the balance now owed and the monthly payments on each and the interest rate on each. And you can see that this interest rate on the average is really high. It's in the double digits, between 14 and 16%. And they found out about the banking strategy, and what they told us is that I can afford 2 office patient visits, the cost that I get in for that, the income we get in for that per day. That came out to $20,000 per year. So he could put into his bank $20,000 per year. And we'll show you kind of how this unfolds. So if you'll take a look up here, We have a credit card. I'm just going to say that they're making the minimum payments. A lot of times we'll pay more than the minimums because we're trying to make a dent. We hear other people saying, well, yeah, you want to pay more than the minimum or you'll pay forever. Well, that's true if you don't have a strategy and if you don't have a plan. If you don't have a plan to take that credit card out, then yeah, you pay as much as you can. But if you do have a plan, you do the absolute minimum because it's all about control of principal. You do the minimum and then you build momentum and then you take that debt out. Same thing with a mortgage. A lot of people have bought into this idea that if I make half my mortgage payment every 2 weeks, I'll make an extra or two per year. That's not going to help the individual. It will, shorten the time period, but not anywhere close to what you're going to see here today. So a lot of people look at this, okay, well, here's $3,500 I would have to take out of my retirement or from stock or whatever else to buy that debt or to pay it off.
Just to clarify, we're talking about a target credit card debt that was existing for this client, and they had a balance that they owed Target of $3,550, and the interest rate was 16% annual interest rate payment with a minimum payment due of $71. Is that the correct hypothetical?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, got it. Just wanted to make sure that the audience understands exactly what we're doing. We've got a Target credit card along with 13 other debts at high interest credit card rates and other high interest borrowing debt rates with the minimum payments due that are overwhelming the people. And so they came to Vance and asked him, we either file bankruptcy and take our kids out of school, or can you show us a better way? And Vance said, I can show you a better way. Let me show you how to operate your own private bank and knock these debts out and actually accumulate wealth in the process. And here's a little spoiler alert. The chiropractor and his family, not only did they come out of debt, but they began to expand their practice, buying other chiropractic offices, and began to actually soar in wealth accumulation. But we're right at the very beginning of understanding this story, and we're talking about a Target credit card debt with a $3,500 balance at 16% annual interest rate. But the thing that distinguishes this people from some is that they had a lot of cash flow. They had the ability to make a redirection of who they pay those cash flowing payments to, and to their own bank rather than third parties. We'll reference the other chiropractic videos so people can look at both sides of the coin.
Okay, so let's bring up to date. This was the debt that they amassed when they announced they had made a mistake, that he did not have Lyme's disease. And he was so far in debt, he had exhausted all of his credit and everything possible. If the first 5 are credit cards, then it goes, when he contracted that false disease, I guess we'll call it, he was trying to buy another practice out, actually another 2, and owed on those. Then he had to get money from a friend. Then he had to get lines of credit at the bank. Then he had to do a HELOC on his mortgage. So now they're here, and the only thing they can do is throw $20,000 at this debt. I asked them, how long is it going to take him to get out of debt? And it was my first experience. It was when I was really new, just practicing this part. They both started to cry. I didn't know if I could handle that or not. But they said, we're never going to get out of debt. We can't see a way to pay this debt off and have any type of normal life. And that was because the interest rate, if they added up the cost of the interest rate, was almost going to equal what they had to put in. So now that you can see all of this debt, you ask yourself the question, how long is it going to take them to get out of debt? Up here at the top was what they had in assets at the time. So they had a little portfolio. Actually, it was a 401k from his wife's work from years back. And so we decided to liquidate that. We were going to have to pay taxes and we were going to have to pay penalties. We had $29,000 to start to put into this plan. And the overpayments on the credit cards plus what we said is their 10% equaled a total of $1,667 that they are going to put in per month.
Just to clarify, they've got about $30,000 in availability because they liquidated a 401k. They paid their penalties and the taxes on that liquidation of the government sponsored retirement account. And they had a monthly amount of 1667 to apply towards cash flow payments.
Exactly. Okay, so that's perfect. So what we do is we help install the banking equation back in people's lives. That's what this whole strategy is all about. And when people say, well, what does that mean? Well, the strategy is very simple and very easy. The banks always get the money back. The banks never sit on money. As a matter of fact, banks won't even let their excess money sit in their bank overnight. It's called overnight lending. It moves forward with the sun all around the earth 24/7. So we install this for them, which means they're going to get money back on payments, especially what they purchase. And instead of paying off the debt, we recommend that they set up their own little banking situation and their bank buys this debt. And let me show you what happens now. So let's just do a little math. We're not doing any growth. Everything you see in here has been actually hindered, but it's absolute guarantees. Everything in here is written down in a guarantee. There's no assumptions here whatsoever. So here's the math. $30,000 to start with. We're going to take $20,000 of that and start their banking contract. It's the old banking strategy, which was always used by life insurance companies. So we built one of those contracts and we dumped in $20,000. That left just under 10. Well, that 20,000 immediately grew cash value of, we're going to say $12,000 up front. Insurance companies work off of what's called annualization, and when you pay annually, you get the earnings, profits, and everything at the beginning of the year, not at the end of the year. And one more caveat that a lot of people don't know, we're going to use that cash value. We're going to add that back to the 10,000 remaining, but we're going to borrow that from the insurance company. We're not going to borrow that from our cash value. We're going to borrow the cash reserves of the life insurance company. And now we've got $21,000 in hand to go purchase debt. So I want you to look over here at the green. And if you look at the last column, you see month of payoff. So these first four we're immediately going to purchase. And that is going to now put the payment, if I come back up here to the top of the payment, 71, 66, 75, 141, or $353 of outflow is now going to turn to inflow. They're going to get that in. So life isn't going to change for them at all. They're still making their payments. Everything's going forward. But what's happening is they're being paid for this idle money that was in a brokerage account that hadn't gone anywhere for several years. As a matter of fact, he'd lost quite a bit of money back then. We're going to add $353 per month to his $1,667. So that makes it a little over $2,000. This Wallace practice, if you'll notice at the beginning, he only owed 82 on it, and 8 months of making those payments, because he's making $1,054 per month, he pays off that business. So you can see right down here that in month 8, we asked him if he wanted to take it out. Hey, you've paid on this forever. Do you want to take it out? Do you want to leave it in? And he says, no, I'm getting the system. I want my money back. So I'm going to keep making the payment. So we left it in. That bumped up how much he was going to pay into his bank, $30,000. So that's enough on this. This is all the background, Seth.
Yeah, so let me just clarify and make sure that I understand and everyone understands. So he had $1,667, which is the start in the green bar that was available. Then he redirected $353 that was going out to other credit card companies. And he bought that with the money that you illustrated above, took out, paid off those entire credit cards with the money in his own private family bank. But he didn't stop making payments on those debts. He just redirected who got the payments. So instead of Target and Sears and Home Depot and Chase getting his cash flow, his own private family bank got the $353 in cash flow a month.
Yeah, Target, Sears, Home Depot, Chase all have a bank, and the money is flowing back to the bank. The bank put this money to work through credit cards. Okay? They always get the money back. And so that's all we're putting in this guy's life. He's going to wake up this $30,000 and put it into production.
$30,000 was doing nothing in his retirement account. Can't touch it, can't use it, can't eliminate the overwhelming debt that he's got. But when he cycles it through his own private bank, puts it to work, now he's, instead of a headwind, he's got a tailwind, we like to call it.
So when he left in this Wallace practice and we have all these other loans, each one we can evaluate. What is it worth to us? Remember, the banks always get the money back. So you're using, I don't know how long this took him to save up in his 401k or for his wife, but it's more than 10 years. We don't spend money. Our whole society and the way our system has taught us, because of lack of education, is we spend what we earn. And that's a no-no. You can't do that and win the money game. You can use the money, but you can't spend the money. Because when you spend it, you lose control. It's gone forever. You got to go back to work. Make everybody else money just to replace what you spent, and you're going to spend it again. Seth, that sounds like the perfect definition of insanity to me.
Did that story feel like it was about you? Do you feel like you are generating a lot of revenue but are not moving forward as fast as you would like? Do you feel you should be making more progress toward your financial goals? Do you feel stuck? Let us help you get unstuck. Are you ready to take action and get your own private bank? Please visit us at www.privatebankingstrategies.com.
Let's start with the big one here, year 8. Let's evaluate that. So he paid a lot more for this agency than $8,214. But this is the incentive that we try to do for ourselves. So we put a little software together, and I'll put that up here, $8,214 I think it was. And he was paying $1,054 a month. So let's find out what that interest rate was. That interest rate on that little puppy was 7%. Okay. Seth, you and I saw this debt. We would buy this debt in a heartbeat. Take your knowledge away. A person out on the street, when we told them that, hey, I'm going to get, let's just use what I've got in here, 8.5% interest. The payment's $1,054, and I got to come up with $8,214 in order to buy the debt. Why would I be drooling at the mouth to buy this debt?
Well, most people focus on the interest rate. And so they're only looking at the size of the interest rate. The higher the interest rate, the more they think that they're making. But they're not focused on what they should be focused on, which is cash flow and the volume of return.
I hope I can turn a light on for you now. When I click over here, how does 154% volume rate of return sound to you on this debt? Is that high enough? If what I'm after is the volume of return, which is the payment based on the money at work, I only had to come up with $8,200, we'll call it. But the payment doesn't change. It stayed at $1,054. That's $12,648. People scratch their head and say, well, yeah, but that's going to pay this loan off a lot faster. It's not about the $8,214. It's about all the money that he had to pay for this property, for that business. So until he has to reassign this money, like he said to me, he says, I'm used to making that payment. I've been paying on it for 10 years. Let's just keep it in and get the money back. So do the math with me here. If that equals $12,648 annually, if we kept that going for 5 years, that would be $63,240. And everybody agrees that that's a great number. And that's a financial planning number. That's a number that most of the individuals out there who try to help you with retirement planning, your stockbrokers, everything, they can do this type of math and these types of charts. But I hope, folks, you're not here to listen about financial planning. You want to know about the power of banking. So if you'll come straight down on the yellow, which is column D, you'll see the money at work is 8214, but you're going to see year 2 that the income for just that year is not 12,648, it's 32,124. Well, how can that be? When the banks always get the money back, what do they do with it? So what are we going to do with this $12,648, Seth?
Well, we're going to put it back to work.
Yeah, and this is assuming we get the same interest rate. So we know we're not going to get this on everything, okay? This is anything above 100% is in the top 10% of what you'll be doing. The average is about 60%. It's above 50, so it's 60%. And I'm so spoiled now, I won't even do one if I'm making 24%. I just don't have to. So the program doesn't know any different. So it's going to take that 12, it's going to go purchase more debt, assuming it's going to get the same return. This 12,000 that I have back in hand now, or the bank has back in hand, they're going to want to put it to work again and lend it out again. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go buy more on that list of his debts. And we assume if we're going to get 154%, that first year's 12,000 is going to produce 19,467. And we're going to get the 12,648. Every year we're going to continue to get the 648 as long as he pays it back to himself until he's got all the money back that he purchased for the practice, including interest. Well, if I keep that going in year 3, I'm going to put this 19,000 to work as well. I've got to get now 12,6. I'm going to get 19,4, 19,4, and 29,9. So how does 576,000 compare with 63,000?
It's amazing.
Seth, we have a lot of people in crypto world, don't we?
There are.
Cryptocurrency and things like that. And everybody touts about the number of X's. Let me put on here a little bit more realistic one, and I'm particularly fond of this one because I worked this strategy on 2 of my vehicles. Started almost 20 years ago. I wanted all the money back on all the cars I'd bought throughout my lifetime, and when I added that up, it was over $500,000. I like exotic cars and BMW M3s, and I just really enjoyed that. I always bought new, and anyway, when the last cars that I had financed, and I'd financed them through Bank of America, when their payoff got down to $10,000, I bought out those debts. So this is one of them. Each car payment was $500 a month, so I didn't change that. I'm used to paying that. I've paid it almost all my life. So take a look at this one. This is an average debt buy right here. What's the volume of return? You take the number of payments per year, 500 times 12 equals 6,000. Well, I had to come up with, out of pocket from one of my investments, $10,000 to buy this debt. At the time, I was paying 8.5% interest. That's still a 60% volume rate of return. Now let's do the math. Let's do the financial planning. 6 times 5 is 30,000. It's still a good number, especially when you start at 10,000. Okay? There's no risk here, by the way, either. There is no risk except the guy looking back at you in the mirror. Now let's bring on banking, the power of banking. This is more realistic for everybody to really see and understand. I've got $10,000 at work. I got $6,000 back in my hand in year 1. I buy more debt with that so that in year 2, I'm going to get $6,000 from the original. I'm going to get $3,600 from the $6,000 that I put to work. And I'm going to add more numbers every single year. In year 3, I'll have $6,000. I'll have 36 and 36. And then I'm going to invest years 2, $3,600, and I'll get 21 from that. And it'll just keep on going, and I'll invest all the money. The money will be put back to work, buying more debt because I have so much debt to buy. So here is something very everyday, very realistic. How does 82,848 sound? How many times did we double this $10,000 that I had to put to work? That's what I came up with. I woke it up. Everybody thinks that if they have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401k portfolios, that their money is out there working for them. That's 180 degrees wrong, folks. It's not working for you. You have to leave that money in the account under the control of someone else. The people who are in control make the lion's share of the money. You only get interest, and you take all the risk. Here, you get all the earnings, 100% of it, and there is no risk except the person looking back at you in the mirror. If they rob from you, we can't help that. So let's take 10 and double it. That goes to 20. Now let's take 20 and double that. It goes to 40. We'll take 40 and double that. It goes to 80, and we're at 82.8. So what do they call that in the crypto? Is that a 3X or something?
No, that would be an 8X.
A lot of people want to hit home runs. But unfortunately, the home run hitters strike out far more than they ever hit home runs. If you want that analogy, here is the sure thing. In these types of things, in banking, you can always plan what's going to come in. Have I stopped this? Yes, but I took 10 years. I was able to do this and keep it going for 10 years for each car. I ran out of debt to buy. I shouldn't have. I made some mistakes in my own life with my family. I thought I would have a really strong family bank now where our whole family could self-finance things, but I tried to preach this to them. People don't like that, especially Dad.
Folks, we're just getting started on this educational podcast. We hope that this is making sense and light bulbs are going off and that fireworks are exploding in your mind, thinking about how your wealth trajectory could change. If you want to know more about creating your own private bank, visit us at privatebankingstrategies.com. That's privatebankingstrategies.com. And when you hit our website, you'll be offered a free book that Vance and I wrote, which deals with issues like this and many other issues we like to call red pill issues that educate people on what they're not doing and what they don't know that can change their life, that we'll teach them. And that book comes in an audio version or a PDF, and it's free to you when you put in your name and email. And from that point, if the book resonates, if these podcasts resonates, you will have the opportunity to schedule an exploratory call with Vance through emails that we send you and dive into this. And ultimately, you can take this entire process and these analytics on a test run in what we call an 8-year analysis plan. Vance mentioned that at the top of the podcast. An 8-year analysis actually shows you how this will work for you and your actual finances and your actual situations. And it will demonstrate to you step by step over an 8-year period, month after month, of what you need to do, how you need to do it. And you can come out like this chiropractor, smelling like a rose, owning multiple practices and totally out of debt. So any closing remarks, Vance?
I get really excited about the strategy. It's what the banks and our government don't want us to know, but it's what made America strong. This is not new. This was not created by us, wasn't created just over the last 25 or 30 years. It's how America started. We didn't have banks. So I'm just really excited to share what we know with our audience out there and hope they enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, folks, come back for the next part of this multi-part series, and we're going to teach you some more. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Did that story feel like it was about you? Do you feel you should be making more progress toward your financial goals? Do you feel stuck? Let us help you get unstuck. Are you ready to take action and get your own private bank? Please visit us at www.privatebankingstrategies.com.
Thank you for listening to the Private Banking Strategies Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.